Affordable smartphones with a recent Android, a good display, a decent camera and excellent battery life are rare. The Umidigi C2 is one of them. Let's start with the contents of the box. First of all, we find the smartphone, which, as you can see, comes with a transparent protective case. Then we have the user manual, as well as a 10-watt charger which will allow you to fully charge the smartphone in 3 hours and 40 minutes. In the box we also find a SIM tray ejector as well as a USB-A to USB-C charging cable. Since the cable is red, you can easily differentiate it from the classic black or white cables. So as you can see, there are a lot of things in this box. Now let's peel off the sticker that contains the device information. As you can see, there is a pre-installed screen protector, which is a very good thing. Unfortunately, on the back of the device there is a sticker with information that is very difficult to peel off cleanly. Still, on the back of the smartphone we find the 13-megapixel main camera as well as the 2-megapixel depth camera. I find the design of the smartphone quite successful in this gold color, although there is also a black color. Also note that this smartphone weighs 192 grams, so it is quite light. On the front we find a 5-megapixel selfie camera as well as a 6.52-inch screen with a resolution of 720p. And honestly, this screen is a good surprise. The colors are good, and even if of course you see a few pixels, if you pay attention, it's not at all disturbing when watching a video. Same thing for the brightness. It is certainly not the best on the market, but it is quite sufficient as long as there is not too much sun. Ultimately, the only criticism we can make of this screen is that the rounded corners can prevent you from seeing part of the content in certain games. At the bottom of the smartphone we find the speaker as well as a USB-C 2.0 OTG port and a microphone. On the top of the smartphone there is another microphone as well as a headphone jack. On the right side we find the power button as well as the volume buttons, which I find well positioned because they are easily accessible with the right hand but also with the left hand, which is appreciable. On the left side we find a metal SIM slot in which you can put 2 nano SIM cards, or a nano SIM card and a micro SD card with a maximum capacity of 256 GB. Once the smartphone is turned on, the first thing you notice is that there are very few pre-installed applications. Indeed, this Umidigi runs on stock Android 13, which means that the interface of this smartphone resembles that which one could find on a Google Pixel with a few exceptions. For example, the manufacturer added the possibility of customizing the navigation bar buttons, taking a screenshot or launching the camera by sliding with 3 fingers on the screen, or listen to FM radio by connecting headphones. But all this remains quite light and will only take up 8 of the smartphone's 32 GB of storage. As you can see, the basic applications that everyone uses like YouTube launch quickly, and although you may experience slowdowns on rare occasions, the overall experience is good, and this smartphone will be sufficient for checking social networks as well as surf the internet. Be careful though, if you play videos in 1080p, the maximum resolution supported by this smartphone, there may be latency during the first seconds of playback. The MediaTek Helio A22 processor coupled with the 3 GB of RAM will allow you to play 2D games, and certain 3D games which do not require too many resources like Minecraft, provided you make some concessions on the graphics and the number of frames per second. So don't expect to play big games like Genshin Impact on this smartphone. The speaker located at the bottom of the smartphone delivers decent sound even if it is seriously lacking in bass. The battery of this Umidigi C2 is excellent, as you can easily last a day or two with normal use, and between 5 and 8 hours of intensive use, video games or lots of photos for example. To give you an idea, an hour and a half of YouTube won't even consume 10% of your battery. On the other hand, the charge will be quite long since it will take no less than 3 hours and 40 minutes to completely recharge the smartphone. Now let's talk about the photo and video quality of this phone. As you can see, in good light conditions the photos are sharp, with a good dynamic range and very bright colors, sometimes too much, but overall the rendering remains quite faithful. On the other hand, when the brightness is lacking, on a cloudy day or during a sunset, the rendering will clearly be less convincing, even if you use HDR mode. Despite this, it is entirely possible to take good photos with this smartphone. In addition to the usual beauty, photo, and video modes, there is a portrait mode which will blur what is in the background of your subject, as well as a night mode and a pro mode. As for pro mode, it will allow you to manually adjust certain parameters such as white balance or ISO, which is practical if you are not convinced by automatic processing. As you can see, night mode slightly improves photos in low light, but even if it can happen, don't expect to have good photos in these conditions. On the video side, this smartphone can shoot up to 1080p at 30 frames per second. As you can see, the colors are quite bright and the quality is correct for a device at this price. On the other hand, not insignificant negative, the focus tends to constantly look for a place to focus on, which will spoil your videos. So of course, by keeping your finger pressed on the screen you can lock it, but it will also lock the exposure, and therefore it is not a real solution. If you record a video while moving, the lack of stabilization will be felt immediately. To obtain a stable image, you will have to digitally stabilize it thanks to the Google Photos application pre-installed on this smartphone. As for the selfie camera, the image processing found there is different from that of the main camera, and its quality is also lower. But this will not prevent you from having acceptable photos when there is good light. In addition to secure unlocking modes by password or pattern, this Umidigi offers facial recognition. It works quite well in good lighting conditions, and it's faster than typing in your password. On the other hand, at night or against light, unlocking is much more uncertain. Besides, I do not recommend that you use it because anyone can unlock the smartphone using a photo of your face. The Wi-Fi on this smartphone is excellent, because the internet connection remains fast even when you are far from the router, which is very useful if you have poor reception at home or if you often connect to public networks. To summarize, with this Umidigi C2 for less than $100 we have a good design, a decent screen, sufficient power for classic use, a camera capable of taking good photos, as well as excellent battery life which would easily last you a day or two, Android 13 which is an operating system that remains relevant. Although you shouldn't expect to receive any major updates on this smartphone, you should be able to benefit from all your applications for 4 or 5 years before some are no longer compatible. If you are interested in this Umidigi C2, I will leave you the link to buy it in the description, and if you have any questions, do not hesitate.